it's a
Hey, what are
very
you doing
slippery
over there?
slope
The show
between
started.
pleasure and happiness.
Wait, so you used to eat 10 Subway cookies a day until then, no?
Alright.
Let's get started. Back to business as usual, no?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's been a while since we did this, honestly.
Yeah. But about, I think this is one of the most important episodes we're going to do up until now, obviously. Up
Right.
until a catalog of 2 episodes.
Right.
But, yeah. So, and one more thing, okay, before going to this episode, I've made
Yeah.
like a mental note for myself
Okay.
that,
Is this about your hours again?
no, it's not. It's that I have to be in a net low state. What I mean by that is like the difference between a guy like Andrew Schultz
Right.
or Lex Friedman.
Uh-huh.
So you see, like Lex Friedman does podcasts on like AI or something which is like which requires you to be like on a softer tone and not like
Okay.
very upbeat and
Right.
excited.
Very ASMR-y.
Yes,
like very
'cause,
calm. Yeah.
Because what I'm going to say, no, it has to be absorbed.
Okay.
And it's hard when you're like a Andrew Schultz kind of guy who's like a proper comedian,
Got it. Yeah.
and he always like
point is
like,
to entertain
he's
with
fully
Andrew
up
Schultz,
in the
yeah.
mic and he's saying, okay, so this, and he puts the punchline and he has his pauses and all of that. So
Right.
I think in this episode it should be more monotonic,
Okay.
and so that it's much easier for the listener to absorb in.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just a mental note for myself.
Got it. Yeah.
And so this episode
Uh-huh.
will be about the basic neurochemistry about addiction, the cycles of it, and how do you break out of addiction, and hierarchy of cause and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay.
And note to listeners, we'll be throwing around some big philosophical words like happiness, contentment, even though we are just
Right. Like
like-
very abstract concepts. Exactly.
yes. And this is just our interpretation of the words,
Yeah.
and hopefully
We'll try and be as clear with how we feel and like
Mm.
exactly what these words mean to us specifically. But yeah.
yeah, and you guys are in for a good episode.
All right, let's get started, Shreyas.
So let's start with the brain,
Uh-huh.
because that's where everything starts.
Right.
This podcast will be a limbic system centric episode.
Okay.
Basically, the limbic system of the brain
Uh-huh.
is the emotional part of a brain.
Okay.
It's what differentiates you from a program to a human.
Okay.
It just gives you a character. It just gives you an individual character.
Right.
That's what limbic system is. And by the way, like let's not go into like the names of neurotransmitter or the part of the brain, because that becomes too nerdy and stuff
Right.
like that.
Real complicated.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we'll just talk about the like fun facts
Uh-huh.
or something which will leave you thinking is
Okay.
what the aim of the episode is.
Right.
Yeah, so as I was saying, what limbic system is basically what differentiates you from a machine which does the same tasks as you. It just gives you individual characters.
Uh-huh.
And then there are aspects like pleasure and happiness, which are polar opposites.
This is all taken care of by the limbic system, yes? Okay.
Which are polar opposites. But the major problem is it's a very slippery slope between pleasure and happiness,
Uh-huh.
because people confuse pleasure and happiness.
Okay. How would you define pleasure versus happiness?
I will come to that question. Before
Okay.
that, let's set a hierarchy of cause,
Okay.
which is basically, let's say, for example, obesity.
Okay.
Now, how does one become obese? Because you're not you're not born with the lack of motivation to exercise.
Okay.
So there's some initiation from the environment around you, right?
Right.
So right now let's base a hierarchy
Okay.
which will ultimately lead you to whatever addiction, but here we'll take example for obesity.
Like a hierarchy of needs, you mean?
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically starts by this, which is caused by this, like that.
Right.
So yeah, as let's consider the behavior associated with obesity,
Okay.
which is caused by the biochemical changes in your head or in your
Okay.
mind or in your brain, to be more
Uh-huh.
specific, which is in turn caused by the change in your environment. And you know what the key word here is?
What?
Change.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that you blame your initial conditions.
Mm-hmm.
It's the change from your initial conditions which results in let's say lack of motivation to exercise or to basically get up from your bed, and that's what would lead to your addiction, which in this case is obesity. So to recap, it's the behavior caused by your biochemical changes which is caused by your environmental changes.
Okay. I think I'm following. So basically, it's because your environment changes. Your body as a whole has biochemical changes that then requires you that then pushes you towards obesity. Is that
Yes.
okay?
And here's the thing.
Okay.
What I just explained you, the process or the hierarchy, has been happening from such a long time, and I've noticed that there's enough medical information
Okay.
um, about the effect of nutrition on behavioral health,
Okay.
and yet these big corporations push out like hedonic substances. Basically, what I mean by hedonic is like reward generating.
Right.
Like when you eat sugar,
Mm-hmm.
you do get a hit from it. That's a small reward. That's like a dopamine spike.
Right.
So reward generating substances, like these big companies push hedonic substances to unsuspecting population, which in turn in the long run leads to chronic depression and obesity and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's net negative.
Okay.
But the catch is there's enough information out there for the average guy like us
mm-hmm.
who have access to internet to educate ourselves enough to at the least be self-aware that this is happening.
That there's big corporations that are trying to push us towards like messing our dopamine systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the profit.
Right.
And on this specific topic,
Mm-hmm.
I have a book recommendation
Okay.
for people who want to further look into this.
Right.
It's called Fat Chance. The book
Fat
title is
Chance.
Fat Chance.
Okay. Quite
It
nicely
asks
play on
two-
words there.
It just answers two basic questions.
Okay.
Why are we so fat and sick?
Uh-huh.
And why does all this happen in the first 30 years of our life?
Dang.
So to find the answers of these questions, you can
Okay,
read the
so the book basically says that the main reason or the things that make you fat and sick happen in the first 30 years of your life?
Not it has to happen, but
Okay.
that's the trend.
Okay.
You know, like first 30 years of your life is when you get the most number of diabetic patients, or you see like the most number of people like becoming health conscious, and because once you have a problem, that's when you
Uh-huh.
start finding the solutions too.
Right.
Generally.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by in your first 30 years.
Okay, so as long as you figure out that within your first 30 years that you have a problem, it's a little easier to fix.
Yeah.
Okay.
And coming back to your question, you asked me what's the difference between pleasure and happiness.
Right.
Let's give you some key words which can differentiate between pleasure and happiness.
Okay.
So pleasure
Uh-huh.
is immediate,
Okay.
and in pleasure it provides some level of excitement or amusement,
Okay.
and it depends on circumstances.
Okay.
But whereas in happiness,
Right.
it's about life, not afterlife.
Okay.
And it's not prone to acute changes.
Got it.
And then it's unrelated to circumstances, so anyone can be happy. It's not like, oh, only if I'm born in like a first world country I can be happy.
Okay, got it.
So that's like the basic, like polar contradictions of
Between pleasure
polar
and-
differences between pleasure and happiness.
Okay. So what I understand is pleasure is more like an instantaneous thing. It's
Mhm.
more like at any given point in time in life for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes.
Huh?
Uh, and in a broad sense,
Hmm?
you feel this gigantic spike
Hmm?
of feeling good, and um, it it results mainly from a small change in your circumstances.
Actually, you know what? I can summarize it in a better way.
Okay.
Pleasure is the feeling of, oh wait, this feels good, I want more of this thing.
Okay.
Whereas happiness is, wait, this feels good and I'm content. I don't need any more of this.
Okay. It's more of it's basically more of a short term versus long term thing. Like pleasure feels.
That's one variable, or that's one aspect of it.
Okay.
And that's a good point you raised, because happiness is is easily achievable in the short term.
Right.
For example, let's say like you get a S grade, you're
Okay.
like, okay, you feel content.
Right.
But then when it turns to pleasure is, I want to S grade in the next test. But at the moment you're content. But keeping the contentment throughout a long period of time is where people fail.
Okay.
Is the hard part.
Got it. Okay. So to feel pleasure continuously is happiness, but
You could say that.
okay, makes sense.
And there are a lot of variables.
Right.
And the most and the most striking difference between both, one is powered by dopamine
Okay.
and one is powered by serotonin.
Oh, okay. So there is a hormonal difference. Between
Yes,
pleasure
and
happiness.
dopamine is the instant hit. And what is the instant hit? Is pleasure.
Right.
And the other one, which has a more long lasting effect, and which makes you feel content, is serotonin for happiness.
Okay.
And yeah, as I was saying, I just got a movie recommendation again. I got a recommendation. This time it's a movie.
No, it's okay.
It's a 1970s old English romantic movie. It's called Lovers and Other Strangers.
Ooh, okay.
Here, basically, a middle-aged couple ask like, "Are you happy?" Where they respond, "Who's happy? We are content."
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's what came to my mind when we were just discussing about this.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because like for example, if like you brought up, getting an S grade makes you very happy and like you want more, and like for example, maybe making like a quick buck here and there, or choosing not to do like a bad habit might make you slightly content. As in the short term, it makes you very happy, but for example, in the long term, if you manage to keep up a habit of working out, or if you manage to keep up a habit of making your bed every morning, etc., that's more along the lines of happiness, where it's something that makes you content.
Fine, I would like to ask you this.
Okay.
When was the last time you felt like pleasure? And when was the last time you truly felt happiness or contentment?
Ooh, very good question. Okay, let's see. So, I have confession. I have a habit of eating sugar straight out of the packet. So, like when I go to like cafe coffee day, or when I go to like a cafe or something, for example, I will open up, like when they give you packets of sugar to put with your drink, I will go and take 5, for example.
Okay.
So I'll take like 2 and put it in my drink.
Hmm.
I'll take like 1/2 and I'll eat it there. Like like the third one I'll take and I'll eat it there. And then the other 2 I'll save for the road, and I'll just like eat it later for like a quick hit of dopamine. Like I'll feel all happy, and I sit and eat like a certain amount of sugar, and it'll keep me going for like maybe like an hour and a half.
Hmm.
But like true happiness, for example,
Like
is
the next harder question is, when did you feel contentment?
content, right? I think I've been working towards little habits that make me feel content. So, for example, whenever I manage to like consistently follow my skincare routine, which has been like kind of recent. So, for example, like whenever I wake up in the morning and decide, oh, before I go to class, I will wash my face. Like I will, regardless of what happens, I will wash my face. Whenever I feel that feeling, right, of like, yeah, I've been doing this for like a certain amount of time, or like whenever I get better at riding my bike, for example, all of this makes me feel, I think, true like actual happiness, because it's like a long lasting thing. It makes it elevates me for more than just 15 minutes. It elevates me as a person for, I feel like, the rest of my life.
Now here's the thing.
Okay.
When I asked you this question,
Uh-huh.
you had an instant answer for pleasure,
Uh-huh.
but you had to think for a while for happiness.
Yeah, right.
This is exactly what I mean by big companies pushing out hedonic substances.
Okay.
This happens every day. You take small decisions subconsciously,
Right.
which goes in favor of these companies to make their so-called corporate profits. Like
Okay.
the most basic legal drug, sugar. By the way, do you know sugar is not a food? That's
Okay.
why in nutritional facts of any food product,
Uh-huh.
it's not always, it's never sugar. It's always added sugar.
Okay.
Because here's the thing,
Mhm.
sugar is considered as a food additive, but not a food.
Okay.
Means it's not necessary for sustaining life,
Okay.
but it's necessary for sustaining the corporate profits.
Okay, so you mean like, for example, if I tried to live my life off of just eating sugar, I wouldn't be able to.
There is no way. Yeah.
There is absolutely no
Yeah.
way. But also, having said that, sugar is a very important food in that it provides you that pleasure that you require to actually eat food.
Yeah. And fun fact,
Uh-huh.
people realize this, that sugar is not important to sustain life. So people, by people I mean scientists, try to sue FDA by saying you promoted sugar as a food and this is why it's bad. So FDA, or generally any health department, whoever took the decision, very geniusly made sugar as a food additive. So you can't sue them. You can't be like, why are you promoting sugar as a food?
Right.
And their answer to it would be, wait, we never told it's food additive.
Oh,
That's why,
messed up.
since it's food additive, that's why in every nutritional fact, it's called added sugar and not sugars.
Okay.
Yeah, that's some fun fact.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because they're fooling the public by saying like, yo, yeah, it's not a food. It's actually a food additive. When the public can't really tell the difference between a food and a food additive.
And the dangerous part is, the each time you consume sugar, it hits you a little bit less. Means you build tolerance.
Right.
That's the starting step for addiction. Once you have tolerance,
okay.
you look for more.
Right.
That's basic logic, I guess.
Right. No, because I watched this video about how like Candy Crush creators and like video games, like creators and other, like people that are trying to make these like addictive things for you, how they try to design their addictive stuff is that one of their big aims is they aim to create this activity or like this event or action that when you do for the first time makes you happy. Have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear, for example?
I've heard it.
Okay, so I haven't finished the book either. Like I'm really holding off on it, but
I've heard the audiobook version of it.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it, but so for example, as you do a habit, right? How it starts at the beginning of the habit is when you get to the good part of the habit, like for example, eating sugar or like drinking or things like that. When you do the habit first, it gives you a spike in dopamine. So imagine that up until you do the action, your dopamine level is at like a particular standstill. And whenever you do the action, it spikes up and then it goes back down. But as you do the habit more and more, your body anticipates it. So the second, let's say, if you're like a Candy Crush user, the second you see like the icon on your screen, right, you get the dopamine hit there itself. The second you see the icon, and then from that point on, that hit of dopamine is what pushes you to actually open up Candy Crush afterwards and then play the game. So your your dopamine hit begins before you even do the action, and then that motivates you to actually do the action. So that's kind of how they design it for people, I guess.
Yeah. And another thing is that once you take a so-called substance, and the reason you get addicted to it is the second time you take it, let's say it's 0.1% less pleasurable than the first time you take it.
Right.
So the loop continues, and you
Yeah.
always seek the first hit, the pleasure of the first hit.
Okay.
So that's when it becomes addictive, right?
Right.
So, but here's the thing: if you can smartly space out the time between you take your substance,
Right.
you can break the loop of
Okay.
addiction. Personal example:
Right.
I was addicted to double chocolate chip cookies from Subway.
Ooh. Okay.
By addicted, I mean like I would eat 10, like literal
Wow.
10, and dude, I don't know. I'm even scared to count the amount of calories
At
that is.
one shot.
No, in a day.
Wow. I didn't know they were that good.
Dude, you microwave it, it becomes gooey,
Oh, okay.
and it just melts in your mouth. It's perfect. But anyway, I usually eat 10. Okay,
Right.
but then I read this book.
Okay.
I started like relating this to my sugar addiction,
Dang.
and then I'm like, okay, fine. So what am I trying? Like I asked myself, what am I trying to achieve here?
Right.
The answer to that is the first bite, the pleasure it gave me. Subconsciously, I'm looking for it, right?
Right.
So here's the thing. From when did college start? So after second wave.
Oh wow. Dude, don't this to me, buddy. Let's say okay. After second wave, I think that's what 2020.
Feb 14th, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's
Yeah, so from
2022, like
February whole month,
Yeah.
I didn't eat any cookies.
At all.
Yeah.
Wait, so you used to eat 10 Subway cookies a day until then, no?
Yeah, because it's as simple as that. You're purely in control of your consequences.
Okay.
If you know this, you can control and you can actually almost, or you can tend to achieve the first hit. So eating 10 cookies a day didn't give me the same hit as eating one cookie after the 30th day.
Okay, sorry. This is really bothering me. We'll get back to your lesson in a second.
Okay.
But you used to have 10 Subway cookies a day.
Yeah, but that's
Until
the thing, dude. In Swiggy, no, they won't be like buy one cookie, we'll give you offer. They'll be like buy 10 cookies, then only $100 off. I'm like, oh bro, $100 off. I'll eat
Bro,
it
but
off.
they weren't that good there.
I don't know, man.
Man,
Look.
Subway cookies.
We had our own way to deal with the pandemic, and mine
You know what, fair.
and mine was dumping cookies in my mouth.
Bro, there's no way. Like a Milano probably tasted better.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm missing out. Double chocolate chip is the shit.
Are they that good, man?
Yeah, you have to. But the thing is, you have to microwave it. You can't just randomly eat the crunchy stuff.
Oh, wow. So you've had enough to the point where you know to microwave.
Yeah. This is like some Breaking Bad scene. I can tell you what's pure.
This man's tried
I
enough.
can give you some street knowledge on double chocolate chip cookies.
This man has had his cookies with salt. This man has had his cookies with sriracha. And he just
I've done it all.
microwaved cookies. My man. Okay, wow. Sorry. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So
Continue.
where was I?
Consequences and stuff. The lesson to be learned from.
Yeah. So after 30 days,
Yeah.
I didn't eat anything. After 30 days, I ate it, and it almost gave me the same effect as the first time I took it.
Okay.
So I realize I'm sounding like an addict, da. These are just cookies, da.
Yeah, there's Subway cookies, Shreyas. You shouldn't be this hype about him.
No,
My man.
but yeah, for guys who are dealing with some other stuff,
Right. No,
you can
I get what you
basically
mean. Yeah.
like extrapolate what I'm saying to whatever you're dealing with. and the
Okay, right.
substances you're dealing
So
with.
the main point is, so long as you delay your gratification enough,
Yeah, and you
you
don't
will
slip
get-
back. That's the thing. We'll come back to that where factors like stress, which increases cortisol levels in your brain, would cause you to slip back to your old habits, is the main reason why people what do you call when you go back to your old habits? Relapse.
relapse, right?
Yeah, that's the main reason why people relapse.
So what you're saying is, if I went to a cafe coffee day, like a week and a half,
Huh?
instead of going like once every day
Huh?
and having like my 2 packets of sugar, if I went back and had it like every week or every week and a half, that it would feel a lot closer to the first hit that I had.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's understandable, yeah, because like absence makes the heart grow fonder,
Yeah.
right?
But like throughout this, like up until now, no, we are chucking words like reward and contentment.
Uh-huh.
Let's first like differentiate or give some structure to the words.
Okay.
So reward is something short-lived, whereas contentment is something which sticks with you for a long time.
Okay, it's the same difference between pleasure and happiness.
But like these could be viewed as the consequence of those, of contentment and happiness, or the driving forces, not consequences. My bad.
Okay.
But and reward is like visceral and exciting,
Okay.
whereas contentment is ethereal and calming.
Calming,
It soothes you
okay.
down.
Okay, I see what you mean. Again, so, pleasure. So reward is the consequence of pleasure, and contentment is the consequence of happiness.
Yeah, and another major difference is reward can be achieved through like substances, like physical substances,
Okay.
where contentment is a state of mind.
Right.
And in general sense, reward is achieved by taking, while contentment is achieved by giving, in a very broad aspect.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and reward is something for you alone,
Hmm.
whereas like when you're content or when you're not, it affects people around you.
Okay.
So
In
that's
what sense?
it's like when you're content, right?
Right.
You tend to bring up other people, or you tend to give out your experience or teachings or your learnings to someone who probably needs it.
Okay.
Whereas reward, as I told you, it's short-lived, and you're again back into the loop of searching into the next thing to give you the hit.
Right. Okay.
Whereas in contentment, it's like, as I told us before, contentment is when you feel like, okay, this feels good, I'm satisfied and content, and I
Hmm.
don't need more. Whereas reward is, wow, this feels good, where's the next bite?
Where's the next? Okay, got it. Okay, no. So thinking about it from a test perspective, would be if you were seeking pleasure, you would get the best grade by, for example, like hindering your friend's progress, and
Hindering your friend's progress to get a hit or to get
because
your
that
pleasure.
one tiny hit from that one little
Yeah.
test of dopamine. Yeah. And for example, contentment would be where you actually make yourself better at studying and you get smarter and you feel better to the point where you don't mind lifting your friends up and making sure they also have good experiences, because their good experiences don't affect your good experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's like a realization which is caused by contentment. Yeah.
Okay, internal. Got it. Yeah.
And the thing is, the field of positive psychology, or the effect of various hormones on behavior psychology and stuff like that, is really hard to keep track or to study them. And there are a bunch of reasons why
Okay.
it's hard.
Yeah. Why is this hard?
Because the study of behavioral psychology is correlative, but it's not causative.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Define correlative.
By
and
what I
causative.
mean by it's correlative and not causative
Yeah.
is, let's say I drop a ball right now and
Uh-huh.
it falls to the ground
Yeah.
in certain speed or velocity.
Right.
Okay. Now using correlation,
Yeah.
I conclude that wherever I drop a ball, it's going to fall to the same speed or same velocity, which is not true. If you're on the moon, you don't get, it doesn't fall in the same speed
Right.
because gravity and stuff like that. That's correlativeness. That's basically conducting your experiments in a certain set of environmental conditions and generalizing it.
Okay, that kind of makes
Whereas
sense.
causative is looking at what causes it and why, and giving some maths form to it. For my example's sake, it's like, okay, Earth's mass is this, that's why it exerts this much gravity on this object, that's why it falls through space in this velocity. That's causative reasoning.
Fair. Okay, I kind of get what you mean. So, okay, let's take this from like the only example I can think of in my head is like a Mac user, for example.
Yo, by the way, my mic is on, right?
Yeah, your mic is on, dude. Yeah.
Fine.
I feel like this is something we should have done before we started recording. Nah, but so for example, let's say so as a Mac user personally, I find that renders take me a little longer than usual. Like for example, like rendering this episode or rendering like an animation, for example, would take me longer. So if I were to, let's say, measure like a bunch of people, right, where let's say I was measuring maybe computer speed versus the type of device they had, and let's say every single slow person, let's say I had like a bunch of Mac users, and the only people whose measurements are recorded were the Mac people whose like performance was slow. Okay, let's say every single slow performer was a Mac user. If those were the only records that I recorded,
you would conclude that Mac is a slow operating system.
Exactly. So that would imply correlation. But were you to take a closer look at the study, you would notice that there are tons of Windows users who have like very slow PCs, or there are tons of Mac users with very quick PCs,
which causes the slowness, which is causative reasoning.
Exactly. So correlation is when you notice that that event A happening happens along with event B, but causation would be when you figure out that event A happens because of event B.
Event B is caused because of event A.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, as I was saying, human studies are super complex.
Yeah.
And because, like, you see, like, to document or to observe a change, when do you know something changed? You need to know the initial condition, the initial state and final state, and when they are different, you know something changed in a positive sense or negative sense. But here's the thing: when someone is admitted to NIMHANS saying clinical depression, you have the scans of his brain when he's clinically depressed, but you don't have the scans of his brain when he's normal, because you don't scan your brain when you're normal.
Right, exactly.
So you don't know the initial condition or the initial imaging of his brain.
Okay, yeah.
So that's one major flaw in human studies, is that initial conditions are not specific.
Okay,
or
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not easily accessible. And another major flaw is that we treat blood as a neurotransmitter. Basically, what that means is we say that, oh, whatever changes happens in blood in hormonal level, is the same changes that happens in brain. But we don't consider the fact that there can be different events or different secretion or different amount of hormones secreted in your brain versus your blood.
Right, like we discussed in the second episode, like brains are very personal and like they operate in very different ways. Yeah.
And other like and other variables like neuroimaging is not accessible by everyone. So your case study or your experiments don't have such a wide sample set, let's say.
Got it. Yeah, like the data on. So for example, if you did measure the brain of a regular normal person, it would differ very differently from the brain of the depressed person before he was depressed, right?
Yeah. And there are just so, like, there are many. Just imagine how many decisions you make in a day. You cannot give a number to it, actually.
Right, that's true.
You cannot give a number to the amount of decisions you make, because every decision there'll be like a sub decision to it, and then be like, oh, this is what caused it. You can always like dig deeper, and all these decisions you make models your everyday brain, and your everyday brain models your weekly brain. Your weekly brain models your monthly, yearly, decadely, your lifetime brain.
Right.
So you are a collection of, right now at present, you are a collection of all your decisions made from this point
Up until now,
up
yeah.
until now.
That makes
Up
sense.
until this point.
Yeah.
So, considering all this as a sample set or as a initial values for your experiment is impossible. That's why.
It's very hard to record, yeah.
Yeah, that's why human studies is a very vast and complicated field of science.
Right, okay.
And another fun fact is that study of serotonin
Uh-huh.
and the effects of serotonin on your brain
Okay.
was banned by the FDA for 40 years.
Why was
Let me repeat
serotonin-
that.
Okay.
Study of serotonin was banned. Basically, they are restricting your ability to gain knowledge or learn about serotonin was banned by a governmental agency, that's FDA, for 40 years.
Okay.
So even this is considered as a variable for why human behavioral studies are difficult.
Was there any particular reason why they
Yeah,
banned serotonin?
we'll get into that hopefully in part 2.
Right. That is going to be a part 2, by the way, because
But
this is
yeah,
a
that's
real
like
big
a
episode.
small flashcard fun fact.
Uh-huh. They straight up banned studies on the one hormone that leads to your
Yeah, here's the
contentment,
thing.
better
Like
life.
it's
Yeah.
we are used to like, okay, banning substances is acceptable. You can ban illegal stuff and stuff like that. They banned the study of serotonin,
Right. Actually, that's real weird.
and for a
because
long time also, almost half a decade.
uh-huh.
I mean, almost half a century, 40
Right.
40 years.
40 years, yeah. No, because like going back to the happiness versus contentment argument, you would argue that like the only substances you would want to ban are the ones that lead to pleasure. Like drugs are banned.
Mm-hmm.
Like alcohol is regulated and all of that. But you would assume that the one thing that leads to, like real happiness and like general better quality of life, you should be allowed to study, right? Serotonin.
Yeah.
Messed up, yeah.
Yeah. And now we just discussed what are the complications of human behavior studies.
Uh-huh.
Now I'll tell you the simplest solution to all your problems.
Okay.
No matter what your experiences is, no matter how you have been brought up, no matter how traumatic or how easy or how average your life is, at the baseline, at the chemistry level of your brain, we are all the same.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
By that I mean only a certain specific number of neurons and number and type of neurons react to specific neurotransmitters like dopamine. Only a specific part of your brain secretes a specific amount of a specific hormone,
Okay.
and this is common between the entire human species, irrelative of your past experiences. So this common ground is very useful.
Okay. Right. We also share like hormonal similarities with tons of other animals, no?
We do.
Right.
By the way, our genetic, another fun fact,
Okay.
our genetic information
Uh-huh.
is up to almost 90%. I hope I'm saying this correctly.
Okay. We'll
Almost
just fact check this later. yeah.
90% similar to yeast.
Yeast. Okay, that's very interesting.
Our genetic
Information. Huh. Because I've heard arguments being made about how lobsters are very similar from a hormonal perspective.
Dude, I'm talking
to us.
about yeast, bro. The
Yeah,
thing you
dude,
have it in a kitchen
imagine.
in a jar.
Yeah, to make like pizza bread. How
Ye-
how are we so similar?
So
to
people
that?
who think they're special, let this sink
You're
in.
not, boys. You are
You are
90% similar.
You are yeast.
You are yeast. Wow. Okay.
Where was I?
Hormonal similarities. Let's see.
Yeah. Let's move towards the history of pleasure and happiness.
2 minutes left.
We'll go on.
Yeah.
Until our flow breaks. We
Fair.
can edit this out. We can, what are we talking
No,
about?
no. Right now, we can edit this out, but also we have Rahul's episode to record. So let's.
Yeah,
let's
I
try
think
keeping
this
it
will
under
take.
45
What I'm
minutes.
gonna say, it'll take another 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes.
No, so what? You want to make this entire thing like one episode?
Yeah, my first part episode will take 20 minutes. I have a lot more left.
Jesus,
we'll put that in
actually.
episode 2.
How much of the book did you read?
I finished the book, yeah.
Man,
Because certain someone had COVID and we couldn't.
Hey, man, don't do this to me now.
Okay,
You're
okay,
not
okay,
fair.
okay.
You're not fair. Okay, fine.
Okay. Yeah. As I was saying, let's go
Okay.
back to history of pleasure and happiness.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
So, the Greeks on record for
Okay.
jump-starting both the pleasure and happiness industry.
Yeah.
In the 3rd century BCE, they wrestled the concept of happiness away from the concept of hedonism, the philosophy that said that the goal of life was net pleasures.
Okay.
What I mean by that is basically pleasure minus the pain.
Right.
Then Aristotle comes into play. He says Aristotle expanded on the Jewish concept and argued that happiness consisted of being a good and ethical person, a manifestation of reason,
Okay.
and coined the term eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia. Okay. What does that mean?
That's not going to change your life and all. It's just some cool name.
Okay. Yeah, bro.
Okay.
We should throw Greek words around here. So
Yeah,
we
bro.
look
We
more,
should act. We should be professional.
sophisticated. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, and
definitely.
Some other guy called Zeno. By the way, I'm not making these up. Okay, this is actually a documented case.
Yeah,
This is documented.
definitely. I'm going to go Google what eudaimonia
No,
means after this.
Yeah, this is like serious part now.
Haha.
Zeno, who's considered like the father of Stoicism,
Okay.
took this up a notch by saying that unhappiness resulted from errors and judgment, and that the true sage was immune to unhappiness.
Was literally immune to unhappiness.
Yes,
Couldn't feel it at all.
yes. And my man Epicurus weighed in to say that happiness was a state of peace or absence of fear, and a life surrounded by friends.
I'm curious though, if you had the choice, would you just straight up like not feel sad anymore?
Yeah, obviously.
Really? Because I wouldn't.
You wouldn't want to feel not sad anymore?
Yeah. Dude, no, because okay, personally I feel like one of my goals from a like living life perspective is I want to live a full life. In that I want to feel
Yeah, and along these lines,
yeah.
there can be an argument made that true progress is always achieved through suffering.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where improvements, or that's where advancements are made, is through suffering.
Okay, so you wouldn't want to feel sorrow unless it was for the sake of progress.
Yeah, I don't want to feel sorrow for sake of feeling sorrow. I want to
Really?
feel it if that would make me a better person at the end of the journey. Wouldn't that
Ah.
make sense?
I mean, true. That is true. Like, but also, I personally would want to feel sad for the sake of feeling sad. Like, at least I think for a while, I would just cry for the sake of crying because it was more like a release valve to then feel happy afterwards. Like, wouldn't you assume that on the daily life gets you down like a little bit, and then the next day life gets you down a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more.
Yeah, again, like this is the whole Jordan Peterson vibe of life is full of suffering. You need to find meaning, stuff like that. And
No, yeah, that makes sense. But
no, I mean, this is interesting. I feel this is where we have different opinions,
very different opinions. Yeah,
and yeah, we can discuss it out. And
fair. Yeah,
yeah, I feel like this is where um, our our ability to keep a constant decorum of the conversation comes into play, where we have different opinions and we can talk it out.
definitely. Yeah, no. So one of the things that I hoped, right, by the end of my life, if I had the opportunity to be able to say that I've lived like a completely happy life, where if you had to like measure my state of happiness, it was always like, let's say like imagine a graph, okay, where there was a line beyond under which there was sadness and above which there was happiness. If you told me like there was an opportunity where I could live my line, like I could live my life above that line of happiness, like always the entire time,
You wouldn't choose that.
I wouldn't choose that. Yeah,
Nice.
I would pick like under the line and above the line and then like way above the line and then way above the line, because all of these things are what make life so full, right? Because you can't truly feel happiness until you felt like true despair, and you can't feel true despair until you felt true happiness. You have to fall and rise very high and then very low to truly be able to feel
Yeah.
the full extent of life, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because I never thought about that way,
Okay.
That's nice, yeah. Yeah,
Interesting,
as I was saying, we were into too much Greek stuff. Let's come into modern religion.
Right. Epicurious, yes. Big words here. You don't. Yeah.
Modern religion.
Okay.
Where, let's say in Christianity, they say one of which were the major, not preamble, but like major point in Christianity was that happiness will occur there and not here. What I mean is happiness will occur in afterlife and not here.
Okay.
Is that correct? Because you're the...
Oh, fair. Okay, I am for the listeners' perspective. I am like kind of Christian, if that makes sense. I go to church from time to time.
Yeah, so they believe in happiness in afterlife.
Yeah. So one of again, I haven't like been to church enough to know this, and I haven't read enough of the Bible to know this. But I think like an aspect of Christianity is that you know that if you're good, right? If you're good while also sacrificing your happiness for the sake of your goodness, you will end up going to heaven, where you will know the true meaning of happiness, where you aren't bound by the constraints of real reality, where you can go there and you can live a life to your heart's content, feeling completely true happiness, where like again, like real realities like real constraints don't matter anymore. Like if you wanted 100 dogs, you would have 100 dogs, and you wouldn't have to go through the responsibility of feeding them or training them unless you really wanted to. But to forsake the opportunity you have, like this is my personal opinion, but to forsake the opportunity you have right now to live a good life, to live a content life with very high highs and very high lows, and meeting a bunch of people and experiencing very different things on the scale of happiness and sadness and other feelings, to forsake that for this promise of what might happen to you in your afterlife feels a little optimistic, no?
Yeah, it does. And I left off at Christianity. I just completed.
Fair, okay.
And Islam redefined the concept of turning it into a struggle and the war between good and evil on earth.
Okay.
Whereas Baha'is, which is a religion whose central figure is Baha'u'llah. I hope I didn't say that name wrong.
Fair, right, okay.
And yeah, which has its faith in both the territories. Which what I mean by that is stating that the humans are noble from the start and capable of continuing spiritual growth throughout their life.
Yeah.
Whereas Buddhism added that specifically practicing allows us to break free from the cycle and achieve nirvana. And this was like a brief documented history of pleasure and happiness.
Okay.
And I guess that's our first episode.
That's our episode. Okay, boys. So
that's
far
our part one.
Okay, so in our part one, we have covered the difference between pleasure and happiness.
Yeah, and if you want to take one single saying or one single piece of information from this episode,
right,
is that, as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Definitely, yeah.
You can extrapolate that into happiness is in the mind of the experiencer.
Okay, that's a very deep takeaway. Yeah.
And that's
Is
all
that
I-
our episode? Honestly, good job. I think we've done a decent job this episode. Ish.
Yeah, I mean,
You didn't slur your R's. You slurred your R's a lot lesser than usual.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm very hyped for this
Damn.
episode. Yeah.
And did I have like awkward pauses like and all?
No. I think we filled our awkward pauses very well. Honestly, fist bump. Good
Nice,
job.
nice.
Good job. Good stuff.
Good episode.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
So this would be, this would be the first part 1 of the, let's say, happiness pleasures series.
Yeah.
And thank you for your patient listening. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. Follow us, check us out.
Yes. You guys,
And-
honestly, you guys are some of the best listeners. You guys have given us some pretty good like viewing numbers. Like from time to time, we'll sit around and we'll check our like statistics and stuff, and it is honestly so sweet.
Yeah, especially
That
for
you
the
guys
amount
sit
of
here.
content we have put out in the last 9 months.
Yeah, where? Oh my god, the fact that you guys.
No,
are
let's not
listening
open
to
that
us
door,
is
bro.
magic.
Let's
Fair, yeah, we
let's
will
act like
stay-
that never happened.
Definitely,
And
yeah.
guys, keep rocking in the free world. See you until next time. Bye bye.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.